So welcome. So we are all here now to hear Matthieu Clemenceau and Łukasz talking us about Ubuntu on RISC-V, the state of things. So please start.
All right. Okay. And where's the clicker? That's it. Hope so. All right. Hello, everyone. Matthieu Clemenceau, engineering director at Canonical for the foundation team. With me on stage, Łukasz from the foundation team as well, engineering manager. And today we'll give you an update on the state of things for RISC-V on Ubuntu. Briefly introduction about what the foundation team does. We are responsible for a large section of the packages in main, including toolchain, base packages, OpenSSL, libc, but also enablement of architecture like Raspberry Pi, ARM, or RISC-V. And I will give you an update on that today. As a side note, for those of you who've seen the ARM presentation from Robbie yesterday, there is an interesting parallel. It was very interesting to see how Robbie, many years ago, tackled the same challenges to enable ARM on Ubuntu. And here we are today tackling a new architecture. So if you've seen the presentation, recommend, if you not, recommend you watch it. But if you did, you will see some parallel. So first, have you heard of RISC-V? It's been fairly all over the news lately. RISC-V architecture has been designed in 2010, and there's been a lot of interest in the tech industry. Even interest from vendors that have their own architecture, like Intel has recently started partnership to produce RISC-V boards. And as you can see, RISC-V is on a projected exponential growth in the market. Today, you can find RISC-V in a lot of microcontroller. There's actually a lot of, it's more likely that your NVMe drive is using a RISC-V controller today. But it can also be found in the core for GPU. There is billions of use cases for RISC-V today. So what's up with RISC-V? What's so much interest? Well, it's because RISC-V, it's all about a new business model. Today, if you want to do an x86, only Intel and AMD can do x86 architecture. For ARM, it's a different business model. As Robbie explained yesterday, ARM is about selling IP. So either ARM sell their own design, or they can license their technology for others to provide their own design. But there is a lot of constraint as far as what feature you can use, what instruction you can use. For RISC-V, which was created University of California, it stands for complete openness. You can design your core with no IP, with no licenses, but you can also use the instruction set you want and the feature you want. And the design of the RISC-V architecture is managed by the RISC-V International, which is a company based in Switzerland, and they organized awareness, connect business partners around it. And part of this openness of RISC-V International is that the membership is free. Anyone can join RISC-V International. So here we are at Ubuntu Summit, so we really care about the hardware that can actually run Ubuntu. So what are the available hardware today that would be capable of this? So, but first, what does it take for hardware to be acceptable? Oh, okay. So what are we looking for? Because there is a lot of various hardware. So we're looking for hardware that have scheduled availability, that we can plan around or release. But we're also looking for hardware that have reasonable pricing, because we want Ubuntu to be the best OS to develop on RISC-V. We're targeting developers, so the more affordable the board, the more likely they will be targeted by developer. We're also looking for strong upstream activity from those vendors. We we want as much as possible to use mainline kernel, and some vendors do a much better job than others to upload their patch. In some case, we'll have to manage some delta for a little bit. So this is also something we look into. Especially we as a vendor, we work with what's your upstreaming trust strategy, and we help sometimes close those gaps. So what hardware have we been working with or are available today? So in the top left corner, you can see the Sci5 Unleashed board that was created in 2018. That board was the first RISC-V board that was able to run a full Linux distribution, and that's really when all the distro got really interested in RISC-V. It is unfortunately discontinued now, but Sci5 came up with the Unmatch in 2021, which is a bigger format. It actually comes with the ITX form factor, so you can plug a GPU card on it, and you can plug an NVMe drive. Another board that we found interesting is the microchip PolarFire. It's mainly for FPGA development, but what's interesting with that board is that it has a 10 years life cycle. So again, that board will be there for a long time, and it's more likely to be targeted by a developer. And what we've seen recently in 2021 is a lot of new platforms are coming in at much better pricing, much better form factors. For example, we've seen the all-winner chips, the all-winner Menetza, the Litchi RV, which is about $30, the size of a Pi Zero. So we're getting into a very interesting territory for developer to experience with RISC-V. So where does Ubuntu fit in all this? So for us, for Canonical, RISC-V is a first-class architecture for Ubuntu, and we've started invested in this architecture before I joined Canonical, probably in 2017, 2018, and we want to drive parity between. What does it mean? First class is that we want parity between AMD 64, ARM 64, and RISC-V in terms of functionality and feature. And to get to this parity, it takes a lot of effort. And I'm going to cover what we've done, the various deliverables, but to understand what it means for Ubuntu to support RISC-V, it's not simply having a kernel that supports RISC-V or having a few packages. It's the entire base of the OS. What we call a port for Ubuntu is getting obviously the kernel, the base libc, glibc, the toolchain, but also entire infrastructure of Launchpad, so we can build all the packages that makes Ubuntu. And we started that port in 2018, and we've had made a lot of progress. So as far as images, we've published, we started in 2004, and we've published image to support the Unleashed and the Unmatched platform from Sci5 I was just talking about. But we also provided QEMU RISC-V images. For 2204, we continued support for Unmatched, and we introduced two new platforms, the NESA, as well as the Star5 Vision 5. And Star5 is using Sci5 core, but they're based out of China. And more recently, so for the last release, for Kinetic, we introduced a new platform, the Litchi RV. So again, a very interesting platform, $30, very small. And we keep supporting the other platform as well. But it's not only about providing images. We also work with our PR marketing team to expand our download page. So if you go on ubuntu.com/download, you will see that there is a new RISC-V link. And if you go there, you'll see beautiful pictures and description of the various images we support, various platforms, excuse me. But also you can see at the top, in addition to this platform, we also support the live installer. And the explanation is that most images we do for RISC-V today are pre-installed. So you put them on the SD card, you press, and you have Ubuntu up and running. But we wanted to provide live installer in order to achieve this parity with AMD 64. So live installer is what we call internally subiquity, which is a server installer, so you can get a full interactive installation on RISC-V. So parity in the archive, today we have, as you know, main and universe pockets with thousands of packages. And to date, we have about 93% covered with RISC-V compared to MD64. So there's still some work to do, but that number, that gap is getting reduced and reduced over time. Now, for developers, some of those packages are more important than others, in particular, toolchain. So all these toolchain are today supported on Ubuntu for RISC-V. Python, PenGDK, Node.js, Go, and C, C++. One of the toolchain missing today is .NET, but to be fair, it's just been added to the archive. We've worked with Microsoft and at .NET 6 last cycle. So it's going to take a while to get to RISC-V. Now for developer, important tools that we made sure have RISC-V support are QEMU, Docker, and LXD, which the container technologies. And one important of canonical technologies, Snap, is also supported on RISC-V. And Snapcraft today support RISC-V packages. The only caveat is that you have to build your Snap yourself and upload it. So to build it yourself, you need a RISC-V board, or you can use a QEMU image we release as well to build your own RISC-V Snap and upload it. Down the road, of course, we will want Launchpad to have full building capabilities so that, like every other architecture, you just publish your Snap, snapcraft.yml, and it gets built on all architecture. But we also have desktop working on RISC-V. So we don't have a product today to sell to provide the desktop image. We don't have an image we provide with desktop, but we made sure it works. So I think to get to that result, you just need to install the server image and do apt install Ubuntu desktop, and that it works. What's interesting with something as simple like that is when we did that to fix all the dependencies to make it to work, so just as a proof of concept. But if someone wants to try it with QEMU or as an unmatched board, this is something fully functional today. We've also spent some time spreading the word. We've done a lot of events to continue reaffirm Ubuntu's committed to RISC-V. We have been to the RISC-V International Session last year in California in December. Here there's some picture from the RISC-V event at Embedded World, where we manned the booth. We discussed about Ubuntu on RISC-V. We showed some demo about Ubuntu Core proof of concept on RISC-V, and we met multiple talks. And I think in a few months, in December, we will be in San Jose again at the RISC-V international event. So what's next? So first, for Ubuntu, there is still some gap we need to close in our ecosystem, in our software. In particular, Ubuntu Core. Today, we made some proof of concept, but it's not productized, so we want to do that. We want parity with all our supported snaps, so like we would love to be able to mass deploy on RISC-V. We would love to have all the canonical snap supported with RISC-V, and something else important is that we would love to have full Launchpad support for RISC-V, and today there is some limitations there, and mostly because of the lack of server-grade hardware for RISC-V. And we will continue to work with a lot of partners and identify new hardware and continue supporting them. But what's next for RISC-V? RISC-V is still a fairly young architecture. There's still some work to do as far as specification. There is no specification today for a secure world, what you would have on ARM, no equivalent, so you don't have, we cannot do secure boot on RISC-V today. There is an approved specification for hypervisor, by the RISC-V International, but no hardware today implements that specification. So that's hardware virtualization is not available. And as I said earlier, we don't have any server-grade hardware which really meets our ability to build RISC-V at scale with a Launchpad. But we are confident that hopefully those will be resolved in the next 2 years. And if you're interested in Ubuntu and RISC-V, if you have questions, there is a few resources you can reach. So first, ubuntu.com, wiki.ubuntu.com/RISC-V will give you detailed instruction on how to enable any of the image and board I talked about today. Of course, ubuntu.com/download/RISC-V will give you access to those images. And finally, if you want to reach the development team, the RISC-V enthusiasts, we are on Libera on Ubuntu RISC-V, -RISC-V, and we also on Discourse under Foundation. And I went a lot faster than I thought.
Thank you, Matthieu. Now that it's quite hard to get hold of Raspberry Pis, how viable is it for me to maybe buy one of those little boards and try a one-for-one swap with a Raspberry Pi? I'm interested in hardware, GPIO, and so on.
Sure. I think on AliExpress, you should be able to buy a RISC-V today. You're not going to find those at Micro Center like the Raspberry Pis. They're not as available, but using the right website, you should be able to get some, yeah.
And a couple of the boards you showed seem to have exactly the same form factor as a Raspberry Pi,
Correct.
even with the pin headers in the same place. Are they the same pins, or are they completely different?
I don't know, but I doubt it would be the same. But yeah.
So you said that you can only build RISC-V yourself. If you ask Colin really nicely, he can enable a PPA or a snap build for you. But because, as you said, we don't have hardware, it's all virtualized, you have to ask per PPA, but still, it's possible. AskUbuntu.com is where you should be asking.
I couldn't hear anything. I'm sorry. We need to turn this.
With regards to the tool chains, you had Python, C, etc., and you said .NET was one that was missing. What about Rust?
It's a good question. I would have to double check. I think it's good. Okay, so Dimitri is saying we're good with Rust. I think it was just a miss on the slide. Yep, we're good. And Savik, I couldn't hear your comments. Were you talking about PPA? Okay, so yes, there is, and I think what you said is there is possibility to create a PPA and request for RISC-V, to have this PPA RISC-V enabled. So thanks, Savik, that was a good addition.
Just a quick question. I forgot if I, forgive me if I miss it. Do you have hardware, like RISC-V hardware that you brought with you that developers here are able to experiment with?
No, sorry, I don't have RISC-V hardware with me.
And I'll comment briefly on hardware, if I may. I'm going to try not to make this a sales pitch. Pine64 is coming out with RISC-V boards. I think that's this month. So there will be more hardware available. And GNOME and KDE have some RISC-V hardware which they're using to do package builds to make sure that things are available. code think. I can never keep those two apart. Have stuff as well, which is being used to foster the open source ecosystem.
Thank you.
Just to add to that, I checked this morning, Pine64 website, the latest update for their board is in August this year, and they are still working on prototypes.
In the back of the room. Nice.
Just to add to that, I have a PinePhone Pro standard and a PinePhone and a PinePhone standard, if anyone would like to play with them. I also have the keyboards, so I can show you Postmarket OS Mobian, and perhaps a different distro if you have a particular request. And I'll be just outside on a table, so anyone's welcome to check them out.
Any more questions? One?
Okay, so you've got me really interested in this. Can you hear me? Is this on? Yeah, you've got me really interested in this. You showed some boards. What would you recommend I actually start with for the best experience right now in the end of 2022?
So you said Vision 5.2? Yeah. Yeah, Vision 5.2, which was on the slide, and I didn't talk about it. It's supposed to be available end of this year, early next year. But it has ability, it's like a Raspberry Pi form factor, and it has ability to plug an NVMe drive, so it's a good platform. If you want to tinker, the RISC-V is cheap. It's also a good option.
Cheap and
Cheap
small.
and small,
And
yeah.
is that one of some you suggested had much longer life cycles than others?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to buy electronics that I throw away because it's completely useless in a couple of years' time. So is that one of the ones that will have support for a long time?
Yes, the one that has 10 years use is a PolarFire, but I don't know if it's a good one for tinkering, because it's about FPGA development. But and for the other one, I would have to check case by case what the support is. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, it works now. What is the status of peripherals like I2C, SPI, I2S, and so on? The bus, so if I can connect a sensor or an amplifier to the current board through GPIOs.
I don't know. What I know is that we didn't, if you make a parallel between enabling Raspberry Pi and RISC-V, I think we are the lower level now. We are enabling the base hardware, enabling the base package in iOS. So as we get more hardware and more people using them, we're going to start focusing on the ecosystem, which is still needs to be created. But I don't think we have any specific work around those interfaces at the moment, but we expect this to start become more important, yeah.
But the hardware-wise, so the processor, it does have I2C bus, SPI bus, and so on. So it's only lacking software support, or those bus for connecting peripherals still have to be implemented.
Do you want to take it? Yeah, I couldn't really hear the question because of the speaker.
Sorry, I have one question for. Do you and RISC-V and they have something like a hardware certification reference, and it seems him, and I know what keyboard devices, peripheral devices, and RISC-V are now used or certificated or evaluated or something. But for the DSI, cannot use something not compatible with Raspberry Pi. So I would like to have something on a resource and the hardware certification list.
I don't know if, and I'm sorry, the audio is bad on stage. So I don't know if it was a question or a statement to clarify something. Sorry.
So the questions here about like the I2C bus and certification, et cetera, it's very board specific. There is nothing RISC-V specific about it. So for example, the boards and images that Canonical has enabled so far, there is no additional certification applied to them the way you would think of like the new laptops, right? In terms of hardware support, like for example, if you take Unmatched, it looks like a normal computer. It's a mini ATX form factor. It has NVMe drive for your storage. It connects normal NVIDIA graphics card to it. There is nothing special about it. It uses normal Nuovo drivers and normal drivers for everything. There is just PCIe bus and so on and so forth, right? It's not a embedded form factor, for example, like the Raspberry Pi with custom hats, which have custom drivers and custom pinouts, right? Instead, it's more generic architecture looking more like general purpose. There will be embedded boards which look more like Raspberry Pis with custom hats and GPUs in the future, but it's not currently something that has been enabled or mass-produced. The boards that's been mass-produced so far, they're very generic. It's just like USB. And yes, all of your USB gadgets work. So if there's a normal USB driver and Linux kernel, it works. Yeah.
Last question, if it's quick.
Last
Sorry.
comment I'd like to make from the feedback I heard earlier. I think we'll definitely make sure next year to for Ubuntu Summit to have a set of hardware and area to play and experience with. Definitely. And probably Raspberry Pi too.
So thank you, Matthieu and Lucas. 5-minute break. Return here at 2:30. Thank you.